Hi, this is Mary with MHD Builds, and we do a lot of basement renovations. Here in Alexandria, we are all looking for a little more square footage to live in our homes, and one of the easiest places to find some extra square footage is in our basements. We are seeing a lot of people who just need additional family room space, extra bathrooms, guest bedroom space. We're also seeing a trend of people doing multi-generational living and having an in-law suite in their basement, or younger families who may need to have caregivers living in the home, such as an au pair. So our basements can, have additional living space, but we're going to need to meet the building code requirements in order to make this a legal living space. Of course, all finished work would need to be permitted through the City of Alexandria, and the building code requires that you have a 7-foot ceiling in your basement, as well as two means of egress. So one means of egress is going to be your staircase going up to your first floor, but the second means of egress is going to need to be either a door with stairs going out of the basement or an egress window. Now, an egress window means that you can get out in a fire, but also the fireman with all of his gear can come into that window and pull you out in a hopefully unlikely situation of a fire. So, and then we are also being required more recently to do whole house smoke detection systems in basements, which is such a great idea because it alerts people upstairs in the first and second floors if there's ever a fire in the basement. So some people are a little hesitant about finishing their basements because it might be dark and damp down there. So in Alexandria, Arlington areas, we are really low on the water table. So therefore we get lots of water in our basements. It's just a really normal occurrence here in this area, but fortunately we can waterproof and keep your basement dry. Before finishing your basement, you always want to examine and see if there are any water issues that need to be addressed. You don't want to finish this really nice space and then have to rip it out later because it gets wet. So what we normally do, we assess the space and see if there's a need for a French drain system. Some pumps are really helpful in pumping water out of spaces, and we use waterproofing membrane to divert the water so that it doesn't actually get into the space before we pump it back out. So even a really dark, dank basement can really be transformed into really nice living space for your family. So I mentioned earlier that our basements have to have a minimum 7-foot ceiling height. So what happens if your ceiling height in your basement is not 7 feet tall? Well, there actually are some solutions for taking care of that. Your basement can be lowered, the floor of that. We underpin the house and lower the foundation in your existing footings. We've even done this while people are still living in their homes. It is an expensive endeavor. You are at a beginning price point starting at $100,000 just for the foundation work. However, this additional square footage of living space in your home can be absolutely worth the investment. Another concern that many folks have about finishing a basement space is going to be the mechanical systems that are running through the space currently. Most of our basements were built by someone who never would have considered that somebody's going to turn this into a living space. So they probably threw the mechanical system in the most convenient spot for them and ran the pipes and the vents and the ducts all over the place. So some of us are going to need to consider moving some equipment, or at a minimum, moving some pipes and some vent lines to create more usable living space. Washington Gas, when a lot of these houses were built in Alexandria, put our gas meters in our basements. It is safe and completely legal to keep the gas meter in your living space. You can also opt to have Washington Gas move it to the exterior of your house. Also, it's a little bit of expense, but it can really open up, the space if it's in a really awkward location. Another thing we do frequently is rerunning large trunk lines of the ducts that are running through the basements if they're extremely low or in awkward locations. We're also moving mechanical systems when it really makes sense. It is an expense that is not insignificant, but if it really opens up the space and creates much more living space, then it's certainly worth considering. We're also having a lot of clients that are using the on-demand hot water heaters, and those really cut down on the footprint of area that you need for the mechanical equipment. Same thing if you're having radiators in your home. If you have a home that currently uses a boiler, the new combi systems are really fantastic. They combine the heating and the hot water systems in one small compact unit. So you end up with a lot more square footage in your basement that you can use for living and storage.